Hi everyone and welcome. Today I am sharing this baby themed card featuring Mama Elephant dies with a Simon Says stamp sentiment. We're going to pair the Sky Bursters background here with the Book Buddy Bear dies. This is the Book Buddy bear and dog, but we're just going to use the bear today to have him hanging over this little string of stars and moon. I've pre-die cut the Sky Bursters background and kept the oval. I'm going to flip it over and use a little post-it tape. You could also use washi tape or something similar to hold that oval in place. This is so that we can keep the oval and the background exactly in place while we do some inking. You could also ink ahead of time if you want to. However, I find it easier to ink after I've die cut so that I know where I want the lighter part of my inking to go, which is in the center in the oval. I'm also masking off all four sides with some post-it tape. There's a slight score line around the edge of this Sky Bursters frame, and I want to keep that white. It's going to automatically create the matted look without having to add an extra piece of cardstock to my card. I'm going to start by building up my color using Broken China Distress ink, applied with the mini ink blending tool. I'm going to go around the edges of this and just kind of keep applying color until I get this nice and saturated. I've die cut my Sky Bursters frame from smooth white cardstock. I didn't use a specialty cardstock here, so I'm using kind of a light hand so I don't get any of those funny ink blending marks, which I already did, so it kind of didn't work as well as I hoped. But as I gradually build up that color, we're going to lose some of those, especially when I go in with the Chipped Sapphire Distress ink around the outer edges of the design. This is going to deepen and darken the sky background I'm creating. Once I've applied the Chipped Sapphire Distress ink, I'll go back in with the Broken China Distress ink and add some additional color. The cardstock is pretty saturated with color at this point, so it's going to blend a lot easier. If you use Distress Oxide inks, I think it would be even an easier blend, as they tend to work a little bit better on regular cardstocks. I wanted my ink to dry as quick as possible, and so I used the oxides today instead of not the oxides, I used the regular distress inks rather than the oxides. I did spritz the background with water from a distress sprayer, blot it dry with a paper towel, remove my masks and set it aside to dry a little bit while I work on assembling the string of stars and the moon. I die cut the base of this from smooth white cardstock, and then I have die cut the moon from Hero Hues Canary Yellow cardstock and the stars from from Lawn Fawn Pixie Dust White Sparkle Glitter cardstock. The glitter is kind of hard to see here in the video, but it has a great shimmery sheen to it in the finished card. I'm layering all those stars on top by applying a little dab of the Lawn Fawn glue tube and picking up the stars and placing them where I want them to go with the Crystal Katana. You could do this in any color you want, and you could also customize the pieces with markers or colored pencils or any kind of ink if you wanted to. Once I have all of my little stars and moon in place, I'm going to set this aside and grab my background back. You can kind of see it start to take shape. I want my Book Buddy to hang over this row of stars and moon and have the sentiment down along the bottom edge of the design. Because my background still might be a little bit wet and I want to make sure before I do any embossing that my background is completely dry so the embossing powder doesn't stick to any of the inked background, I'm going to hit the bottom edge of this with my heat tool, and then I will take a sentiment from the Simon Says stamp, Tiny Words Faith stamp set, and stamp it along the bottom edge of my Sky Bursters background. The sentiment will read, "Your little one is a beautiful gift from God." I love mixing and matching supplies from multiple manufacturers for cards. I liked the size of this sentiment as it fit along the bottom edge of the card and allowed the bear hanging over that string of stars and moon to really take the focal point of this design. I'm going to sprinkle on a little Simon Says Stamp white embossing powder, tap off that excess, and then again grab my heat tool and heat set my sentiment. The Book Buddy Bear was die cut from some Hero Hughes, let me double check, chestnut cardstock. I wanted to make sure I got the name of that cardstock right. I die cut the body and the head from this chestnut cardstock. These Book Buddies are meant to be bookmarks, but they can also be used as fun design elements on cards. I've done several other cards with these, and I always think they're so super fun, especially when it looks like they're hanging over the edge of something. This works particularly well with this design. If you wanted to create a little girl card, I would simply change up maybe the background colors, or you could even switch out the head of the animal and maybe use a kitty or a bunny instead. There are so many fun options here. I'm die cutting the rest of the elements for the Book Buddy face. This is going to include the eyes and then the nose and the mouth die cut from Hero Hughes pitch black cardstock. And then the paws of this bear are going to be die cut from Lawn Fawn paper bag cardstock, so they're going to be much lighter than the face. The insides of the ears will be die cut from Hero Hughes peony cardstock. Super simple, little bits and pieces that really make the bear come to life. With critters, I always feel like it's important to make sure you add plenty of either shading or other kinds of embellishment to make their little faces really shine. I'm going to play around with the elements just a little bit to make sure that I have everything exactly the way I want it to go. I did contemplate different options as far as the paws for my bear and different ways of embellishing, but ultimately I decided to keep him fairly simple and make that Skybursters the star of the show here. We're also going to back the outer frame of this card with foam adhesive and adhere the center oval of this design directly to our white card base. Now I did back the frame with foam adhesive off camera and adhere my oval to my card, but I'm going to wait to attach the frame for just a second until I have the Book Buddy body and then my little stars and moon in place where I want them to go. I've also put foam adhesive on the back of the stars and the moon, which took a little work as I trimmed down all these little pieces so that it would lie nicely against my card. I want to make sure I get this kind of hanging as perfect as possible, and then I can go ahead and glue the Book Buddy arms over the top. A pair of tweezers comes in so handy when you need to hold something in place. Now I did start to add the head to the Book Buddy, but I forgot I hadn't adhered the frame to my card. So I'm going to really quickly peel off the backing paper of my foam adhesive along the back of my Skybursters frame, and it just is so stinking sticky, which is great because it's going to stay put, but I don't want it to get on the Book Buddy head, so I did pop that off with a little undo adhesive remover and then place the head back where I wanted it to go. Next, I'm going to add some little dabs of Lawn Fawn Glue Tube liquid adhesive and place the eyes, nose, and insides of ears and the paws in place. I've also got some extra stars here, and I'll die cut even more stars from that Pixie Dust glitter cardstock that I can add throughout the card design. I want the moon to have some fun sparkle too, so I took White Blizzard Nuvo Crystal Drops and placed that over the moon to dry. I'm going to take a white Uniball pen and add dot detail to the eyes, a little highlight to the nose, and some white dots to the cheeks of our cute little bear. Now remember earlier when I was talking about adding shading. I should have probably added this before I added my bear to my card, but I decided I really felt like he needed some shading with Copic markers, or you could use another color medium of your choice. But I'm going to use Copic markers to add just a little bit more depth and dimension to this cute bear, especially his face, but we want to make sure and get his body too. I'm using some darker brown markers to start with and just kind of outlining and being super careful around the insides of the ears and those paws because they're much lighter. I also don't want to get Copic marker on any of the background. Then I went in with my next lightest color, and I really felt like that was still too dark. You're going to still see a really harsh line, which I definitely do not want. So I ended up going back with an even lighter marker and coloring over the entire face to blend that out perfectly before going back in with my dark markers and adding some dot detail to give some texture to this sweet little bear face. I'll also add some additional marker to the body of the bear. Isn't he so cute? I even think a little bow tie would be cute around his neck, or if you wanted to make this a girl card, you could add a little dimensional paper bow to the head, and that would be fun as well. I've added white pin detail to the paws as well. Once my Copic marker coloring is all done, I am going to add some additional stars to the ends of my little string of stars here. I think that kind of finishes it off nicely so it doesn't feel like it's hanging out in outer space. I'm going to add additional drops of glue throughout the design and add those extra stars that I die cut from the Pixie Dust white glitter cardstock. This ties the whole thing together and really finishes it off nice. Once I had added these, I decided I needed just a little additional sparkle, and I took some Pretty Pink Posh silver mini star confetti, and I'm going to add these to the center of some of the stars, and as well as adding some around the perimeter of my card just to finish it off with that fun star design. I'm using the Crystal Katana to pick those up and pop them in place so that I can keep my fingers out of the glue. Adding little drops of the Lawn Fawn glue tube, and then just popping those little silver star confetti pieces all around the card design. I'm even going to add one to the moon, as the Nuvo Crystal Drops on the moon is still wet at this point, and I can add it there without having to add extra adhesive. Once that's all done, I'm going to add just a couple more areas of white pin detail, and this baby card featuring Mama Elephant dies and Simon Says stamp sentiments is all finished. Thank you so much for joining me today for this baby themed card. The supplies I used to create the card are listed and linked below the video here on YouTube. Here are a couple more videos featuring Mama Elephant stamps and dies that you might be interested in. Thank you so much for joining me today, and we'll catch you next time.